Jake and Mitts.
All right, Epstein files are released. The Eagles deny visiting Donald Trump or having Trump come out. Dan Crenshaw's making death threats to Tucker Carlson. $500 billion from Apple Investments is going to be invested into the United States. James O'Keefe drops a huge whistleblower bomb about Monica Cruz and the Juvenile Smuggling Network. Major tax savings to Americans. Tulsi Gabbard's firing a bunch of employees. And Trump has taken over 1,000 questions in just a month. Welcome to the Jake and Mitts show. Jeff, what's cracking, dude?
What's up, buddy? A lot of things going on this week. You know, you always kind of figure that maybe one day we'll run out of things to talk about. And then by Tuesday, you're like, wow, there's just there's a lot going on in the world. A lot of things I want to get to. Make sure we do talk about the new executive order on healthcare transformation or transparency. It's going to be big this week because we do talk healthcare a lot too, but I'm doing great, man. Happy Friday, brother.
Let me ask you this. Like, what are the 5 things that you got done this week, Jeff?
No shit. You know what? I wrote 5 things down I wanted to talk about on the show, but I certainly can take 48 hours to figure out 5 things I did.
Do you think it's crazy looking at some of the reactions? Now, I'm in the federal space, so I can literally speak for this. But what are your thoughts on some of these people these libbies losing their minds about having to write 5? Couldn't you just what do you think about that?
Well, anybody who has any kind of a brain to themselves would just make up 5 things. Yeah. Right?
I mean, do you think it's disrespect? People were taking it as a disrespecting. Do you think it's disrespectful that you had to write down 5 accomplishments that you did last week? I can understand. I'll give you my opinion, but I want to know your opinion.
I'll say this. The people who, let's just go back this way. The majority of those people haven't been working in an office anyway to get 5 things accomplished. And if you're really struggling to justify your being as an employee and you can't find 5 things that you did in a course of a week, bro, maybe time to barista work or something like that. It's so hilarious to me that no one wants to mention that 1 million people actually did it. Yeah. 1 million people did it. Right? Without
even hesitation. They're just fine, whatever. With nothing new in federal government workspace, guys. No joke.
Yeah. I remember talking to a couple folks who were very active in the military, lieutenant colonels at bases around me. And to get rid of someone, to actually physically fire someone, is a process that lasts 18 months, 2 years. So, if you can't figure out or make up what you've done over the course of a week with 5 bullet points, maybe it's time to look at your another job or another profession for yourself. But, God bless the folks who've been there for 30 years and never had to justify shit. So I guess
that's case in point. I knew this. I literally knew this guy. So I am a private federal contractor. So I am not what they call a GS, a government service level employee. That's who this is affecting. So these people, these libbies are I need to write down 5. I'm like, dude, you could look at your description, go to your description title in your job, and it'll tell you 5 things that you should be able to do. And I'm not going to lie, just lie. I mean, is it that bad that you can't write 5 things? Anyone's like, oh, and what it tells me, the number one thing it tells me, if you can't even 5 things, if first of all, if you're stupid enough to not know to go to your job description to look for that, and you can't write 5 things, it just tells me, dude, you don't need to have the job that you're having. I literally met a guy that was in government where I worked on the base that I was at, was on a program for 19 years, program manager on a training, airplane program. And I'm like, what do you do?
Right.
And he's like, he couldn't even describe it. He's like, I've been the program manager for this program. And I'm like, dude, what? What are you doing? And that's what we're dealing with. And I think, dude, it's like a shotgun blast. I think people don't understand. It's like a shotgun blast to just get rid of as many people as they can that don't need to be working because they don't do anything. And I will tell you, in the federal space, guys, I work in this space. I do it. You just have to try in order to be successful. And a lot of these people just sit there for 8 hours a day, logging whatever, and they don't do anything. And so, I mean, I think it's great, but people are losing their minds, and it's nothing surprising, but it just tells me, much like the Doge findings, people that are getting ticked off that they're finding all these things, and all of a sudden the liberals are like, we're not about giving out free money and $5,000. But they're like, aren't you the Democratic Party? You're all about giving money to people. It's just it just says people aren't doing their jobs and they're trying to rid people of it. I thought it was funny. It's like these libbies have a degree in online activism with a minor in puberty blockers. So that's kind of who we're dealing with here. But this is pretty cool, man.
You know what? Real quick before you move on to next, I guess the question, I thought about it all week. I would like to do a breakdown or see a breakdown of those federal employees on what their pay rate is. Are they hourly? Are they salary? What does it go up to?
I can tell you that. That's easy. If we're talking government workers, is that what you're talking about? Yeah, these government workers, they're classed on specific pay scales, which is like a payment number. So like, I'm going to give you an example. GS1 through GS15, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 15. Say I'm a GS9. I just got hired by the government. You have a fixed pay salary, annual salary. And as you get promoted, I'm a GS10 or I'm a GS11, your pay scale goes up. Now, you can have like prior service to as like a military person and be GS, and you could be like so you can be like a GS9 step 10. So there's like subcomponents to getting a little bit more of a pay raise, but it basically goes GS1 to GS15, and then it goes up to higher levels, which is like executive level, like the C-suite, like the SES, like senior executive levels.
What do you think the average yearly income is for a federal employee?
It depends. Like the pay scales really differ. So like a GS12 could be making like 70 to 80K a year. It just depends. 13s, 14s, good pay. 14s like north of 6 figures, maybe into 120. So it just depends where you are. Yeah, I mean, it's whatever.
That's funny.
Yeah. So I want to look at some of these Americans support President Trump's agenda. This is really interesting. Percentages so far, 1 month into the new presidency: 81% support the deportation of illegal immigrants, 76% support eliminating government fraud and waste, as well as closing the border. 70% are in support of hiring based merit individuals instead of this DEI racist agenda. And 61% of Americans are in support of the reciprocal tariffs that Trump is starting to implement, and you're starting to see as it's going on. So obviously you can see that the data that's being pushed out is that a lot of Americans are in support of Trump. This is what they voted for, and this is what they're getting. And I think you alluded to something the other day. We were talking about, because of his transparency in the media, what he's doing, how he's talking to people. And what was that you were talking about in terms of like the amount of questions he was answering versus other administrations? Do you remember that conversation?
Yeah, they look back, which was really interesting to me. And I looked at it this week, and our press secretary is just phenomenal on spitting the facts out. One of the facts was they looked at the last 4 presidents, their first 30 days is what they looked at. So they looked back to Biden, to Trump, and to Obama. They started with Obama. So your first 30 days, how many questions that you took from national or international media? Okay. Yeah. Obama's administration was like 305. Trump's first administration was in the 500s. Biden was in like 138. Trump was 1,031.
So he's
1,031 questions he took in a 30-day period of time.
So really, you do the quick math. That's like 7 times what Biden did in his first administration. And then, you know what? I would love to see the numbers as this progresses through the year. We get an annual review. People are like, well, why do you care about that? Dude, we care because he's addressing the American public and telling them. It's like he's telling them what he drank out of the refrigerator that morning. You know what I mean? It's kind of nice to know that they're thinking about you, and you got a press secretary who's basically answering all these questions. You got Stephen Miller, the deputy chief of staff, who's like ripping people apart, basically giving them a civics lesson every single day on how government actually works. You know, like the F around and find out, like executive order. Like the dude's just like, I can't say he's unhinged. He's just so, I appreciate, as a former military guy working with a bunch of individuals who say it how it is, I can respect that.
Yeah, I respect that too. And the other thing I respect, and I think it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you sit on right now.
No.
You know, and it's intriguing to me that what Trump ran on is coming to fruition. Promises made, promises kept. You could be the biggest left wing or the biggest right wing Republican or left wing liberal out there, But I mean, we could all come to an agreement on this is what he ran off of foundationally, and this is what he's doing. Oh, and by the way, Jake, it's only been 30 days.
I know.
I just think that's remarkable. I don't care if he was from another planet. Someone coming here saying, this is what I'm running on. This is why you're voting for me. This is what I'm going to try to save America. And you're doing it. And in 30 days, look at everything we're talking about.
I mean, he's literally doing it. And all these little side things happening this week. I mean, there's some like movie stars that passed away this week too. That was kind of crazy. People that I grew up with, and then you see, and then you go flip side to like a lot of like the legacy media meltdowns that's been happening. And I kind of want to. So you look at like Joy Reid, aka Racist Reid. That's kind of what people are calling her from NBC's. She gets fired from NBC. People are like, she's let go. I'm like, bro, they canceled her show because it was doo-doo sauce. Like from February 2014 to February 2015, Reid hosted her own NBC show called The Reid Report, which was supposed to replace the Chris Matthews Hardball show. Ended up being a bunch of hot garbage. They canceled that after a year. Somehow she stayed around on the MSNBC payroll. And in 2020, she got her show, The Readout. And we just found out recently that it got canceled, and I want to know why you think it got canceled.
Well, if you watch anything any camera that she can get in front of right now, she's going to get in front of it, and she's going to drop the old R word as much as she can.
I know.
To the point where she's going to get as many people listening to her as they can. And quite frankly, I don't know if there's many people listening to her anymore at all. Post NBC, she had a platform to run on.
Yeah.
And she ran that into the ground too. Then you look at her when she comes on and she's doing podcast or someone's interviewing her and immediately goes to the race card. At the end of the day, I don't care if you're black, brown, purple, or yellow. Dude, if you bring no context and no content to what you're trying to do in your platform and bring nothing to the people, the viewers at the end of the day in your sponsorships, you got to go. You know, you watched ESPN did that 2-3 years ago when we were in the middle of the George Floyd movement, the Me Too movement, and the racist movement, and all this sort of jazz.
Stephen A was doing it all the time.
Stephen A was doing it all the time. All of a sudden, Stephen A's running around right now saying the Democratic Party's lost their mind and they have no soul.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I mean, what does that say? And then today I read, how the bench is so weak at the Democratic side on the Democratic ticket. You still have Harris up there. You still have Bernie Sanders, man. I mean, and then they list Stephen A. Smith, who's your biggest opponent right now when you're talking about what you're trying to accomplish. So I think the sense of identity on the Democratic side right now, they better figure out something fast, or it's going to be a 12 to 16, 20-year run for the Republican Party GOP.
What I don't understand is that she's a professional journalist. These are professional journalists who've been in the game for 20 years, but they don't understand, like, who's not grasping it on the liberal side that the more you talk about racism and DEI, which were the two biggest topics that Joy Reid always talked about, she wonders why she gets fired, man. Like, no one wants to hear about racism in America. People aren't racist. Generally speaking, 99% of them, you talk to anyone, no, they're not. Like, I can't even imagine walking up to someone of color, and it doesn't even register in my mind to think that way. But when you're talking about it on national TV, trying to get all these ratings, and it's literally a dumpster fire, then you see people like Rachel Maddow, like how that chick still has a job after what she did after talking about Joy Reid. That's kind of crazy because she goes on and saying, Joy Reid was my friend and I still have so much to learn about her. And I'm like, bro. And then she calls out her producer bosses and says, I think it was a bad move that you did that, and I'm going to tell the entire world about it. If I would have been her boss, I'd be like, hey, that's cool. The Rachel Maddow show canceled. You're fired and you're gone. We don't need you anymore. But it's like she calls them out, and people are like, you see Megyn Kelly talking about, like, does her producers, do they have like a pair of stones between their legs? Because this is embarrassing. She goes, Megyn Kelly, big time news anchor. And it's just to hear that. And then her ratings plummet. She has this hilarious video of, Joy Reid has this hilarious video of her saying, my show had value. Everyone's looking at it like you get the Hodge twins, Tucker Carlson. Everyone's like, what? Like, there's zero benefit to that, man. People need to get away from, stop using the word racist. Like, you want to talk about a buzzword? Unfortunately, that has become a buzzword because it's overused in society today.
Well, Jake, at the end of the day, 70+ million Americans voted for for a new administration and new leadership. And I think at the end of the day, when you look at the last 4 years, whether you were a liberal, you were a Democrat, you're a someone in between, sitting in the middle of the aisle, I think everybody gets tired of talking about the same stuff. And
Yeah.
racism, critical race theory, transgenderism. But what else are they going to talk about, Jake, when at the end of the day, we're putting W's on the board across the board in DC and throughout the world. Zelensky showed up to the White House today with a suit on. I mean, I just think from all in all, I think we're just so tired of the narratives, and we're looking for something in the future, because I think everybody's looking for something brighter in the future. And quite frank with you, with everything that's going on right now, whether it's healthcare to USAID to, what Kash Patel's doing, what Pam Bondi's trying to do with the Epstein files, everybody's trying to get answers, and they're trying their hardest to get them to us. So.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing, but I think the liberals have just buried themselves in this identity, like the LGBTQ, transgender, like DEI, racism. Those are like 4 topics that are just regurgitated all the time. And that's why, like, you have these liberals that are so reluctant to get away from their belief posture. And until they do, there are more, I would say, more moderate liberals and Democrats that are like, dude, if we don't change, we will lose every single election. Even Lester Holt, Lester Holt from NBC, he ended up leaving, saying that he's exploring subjects that he deeply cares about. And I'm wondering what that is. If it's something like, if he goes the route that Don Lemon did, and Don's sitting there like doing little Snapchat videos of him on his profile, trying to grow his community when it's like a dumpster fire because he also got fired. Do you not see the fallout from the actions of talking about the same garbage? But then you find a big W, because Dan Bongino from the Dan Bongino Show ends up joining Kash Patel as assistant or the deputy director of the FBI. And I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on, what you thought about that, because Dan Bongino, massive following, his whole career background is unbelievable,
Yeah. He says he was a Secret Service.
He was.
Right? Yeah. So he was Secret Service at one time.
16 years he was Secret Service.
Yeah. And I remember I got to know Bongino pretty well, and he came out of the woodwork and really started spitting facts after the first assassination attempt on Trump in Pennsylvania. And the things that he talked about were much like Donald Trump. Everybody wanted to call him a conspiracy theorist. Yes. And he says, I know things on the inside that have happened. I know things that have happened with other presidents. I know things that have happened with other administrative, even traveling overseas with these guys. And this is the reason this is all going down. I believe, as a matter of fact, he actually put together a strategic plan within like an hour of the things that should have been done, the cross checks that should have been accomplished with what happened in Pennsylvania, and they weren't even touched. I think that guy is going to bring up a superpower to what we have going on right now, assisting Patel in the FBI. I think a lot of people at first thought the guy was just crazy and speaking crazy conspiracy. But I think now, Bongino, I really, truly believe he could be the game changer at the end of the day when all this stuff comes out in the laundry. I really do, because he knows so much behind the scenes, man.
He's a pit bull, and he's a pit bull. Yeah. He's going to be able with the Marines when we were kicking doors in Iraq, like that dude. He's going to be that guy. I mean, he came out talking about how he is like, he goes, I'm going to be unwavering and unforgiving and like, for example, hunting down the people behind the Russian collusion. Yes. He goes, Adam Schiff. He goes, I am coming for you. Like, he's not going to just let that slide. Like, he's going to go and figure it out. You're talking about a guy that served in the NYPD 16 years on Secret Service. Dude, to be in Secret Service, the qualifications you got to have? It's unbelievable. A lot of these guys come from Ranger regiments, any kind of special forces units, ODA, Delta. Then they get brought onto these special units to be able to protect the president. And Dan Bongino protected Bush and in the Obama administration. So Bush and Obama, protected by Dan Bongino. His podcast, this is really cool because by generating these conversations on these topics, these conspiracy theorists, when every single one of them came true, which is kind of how we're marked these days, he has over hundreds of thousands of people that follow just his podcast and 3 million followers like on Instagram alone. Like, the dude has a massive following. And now that's what's happening. That's the landscape of the quote unquote Republican Party. It's not the Republican Party anymore. You got guys like Dan Bongino. You got, J.D. Vance, a 40-year-old vice president.
Yeah. I also think I'm gonna go back to your point you just made. It's not the GOP anymore, Jake. It's an all-star team. It's an all-star team of people who are gonna come in here and fix this world.
Yeah.
And you're gonna fix the world by fixing the United States first. And if you can do that, you surround yourself with people who are experts at their field,
Yeah.
when you'll freely admit, and I'll give Trump a lot of credit for this. He will never say it, but he will admit, if you ever read any of his books,
Mm-hmm.
he's not an expert in everything. But he'll admit that when he's not an expert, he'll surround himself with people who are very, very, very good. And then when you look at it yesterday, I think the English prime minister is in office. J.D. Vance just looked at him flat out and said, dude, you got a problem with free speech.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, well, I don't know. But you have a problem with free speech and this needs to be addressed. And everybody got really squirrely. When's the last time you watched one of those conversations happen in the White House press room or in the living room or on one of the couches with a foreign leader and you start spitting facts and they start getting squirrely? I think everybody's on standby right now and everybody's in the edge of their seat for what's going to happen next.
Don't think everyone's like us where, dude, pushed around as a kid. I hate to be pushed around. And when I see garbage like this, I don't understand how more people, and there are some great people that are talking about it, that just push back like JD Vance. Like I would have been like, I would have said in a much different tone in a different way. I would like, bro, have you lost your mind? Have you seen what you're doing to your, we look at our First Amendment rights and you go on a platform like TikTok and you talk about anything other than like flowers and bunnies and you're pretty much censored on every video you talk about. I had platforms, man, with 100, 200,000 followers. And then eventually they keep getting pulled down. I have big time influencers because our rights are pulled away for speech, bro. People don't even say murdering people or killing people. They call it unaliving people. You can't say there's certain words within the human trafficking realm that people have. It's like we're curtailing our words. You should be able to say whatever the frick you want to say. But now you're looking at countries like the UK and you guys, you got guys, our team, if you've seen that funny video, it's like all of Trump's team and like Captain America, it's like the Avengers and he's like assemble. And like they had, that's what they are now. And they're going in and just kicking doors in because when we're talking about speech specifically and what he did, there is no room for that. And these guys like Stephen Miller, that dude, you watch more of his stuff. If you guys don't know, Stephen Miller, assistant chief of staff or deputy chief of staff, that guy has zero filter and it's beautiful because he's truthful. He's not vulgar. And he's not even crass. He's very direct. And people today have been so conditioned to be so sensitive whenever they hear something. It's like, dude, get some nuts and just take it. If you don't agree with it, fine, then say something about it. But we shouldn't be able to stop what people are saying. So I'm glad that's the action that we're seeing.
Well, I think it's kind of cool too. You're talking about Miller. When he walked in, he stopped a press conference to talk about the three branches of the federal government.
Yeah.
And says, let me just give you a civics lesson real quick. And let me explain this to you. And he explained it all to the media. And he said, I'm going to give you an idea. And it all funnels through the executive branch.
Yeah.
Judicial branch. And people were shell shocked that he did that. But at the end of the day, we kind of have to go in right now with this administration and we're trying to kind of, in a sense, reinvent and re-educate people on what the true meaning of government is. Because I think for the last, you take Trump out 4 years ago, for the last 16 years, what has the federal government really meant to folks other than asking for a handout?
Well, it's because they can't delineate between what a democracy is and a constitutional republic. And guys, this is huge. Let's use an example, a very robust example, extreme example, if you will, right? Say I want to enslave black people, right? Okay. People, oh God, but let's say we're taking it to an all extreme. That's going to come back. The difference between a democracy and a constitutional republic is that democracy is a majoritarianism. So it's an up or down vote thing. Some people are going to vote yes, some people are going to vote no. Where a constitutional republic, which the United States is, we have to go through a very detailed process. So that's the difference when you have liberals, well, we're a democracy. No, we're actually not. We're a constitutional republic where that is a slow, arduous, and intentional process. Preferences on liberty, not free stuff. That's the difference. So when we're talking about a very extreme example like that and why people don't understand what's happening, what kind of government do we have? Athenian democracy is what what the liberals will say is democracy. And the founding fathers, this is critical, the founding fathers saw that as a big mistake. They were like, if we only have a type of government that votes on a big picture, yes, no, then we're going to have some issues. Because think of it like this way, Jeff, like if we had a system to where that if men were like angels, angels are perfect, time and time again, we wouldn't need to change the government that way. But men are not angels. Men are very flawed. So the founding fathers saw that they got to make some kind of change, some kind of adjustment, because we're going to end up hurting ourselves. And it's a balance between I know this is detailed, but you'll read this in the Federalist Papers and everywhere else. It's a balance between Jeffersonianism and Hamiltonianism. Well, what they call Jeffersonianism and a Hamiltonian philosophy. And it's human nature for us to like want absolute power and whatnot. But the will of the people needs to be best expressed through like a multi-state project kind of setup where we have lots of checks and balances put in place. And that's what people really don't understand about our government. You know, Madison said it the best. Madison said, we cannot have the tyranny of the cities over the farmers. So there has to be a balance. And I say all of that to say, what you just mentioned, that's why a lot of people don't understand what's happening in our government right now, why the Republican Party isn't really the Republican Party anymore, how they're operating, and how our country is starting to like turn into this really interesting. The old government is gone. You will see it will not be back because of what is happening now with the type of transparency in this constitutional republic.
Well, you go back to Jefferson and Hamilton, Alexander Hamilton, Thomas Jefferson, and over to Madison. It's just a simple breakdown of big government versus small government, right? At the end of the day, the Democrats want big government. They want big government because there's a lot of money to go around. And it's a pure example of what USAID was doing, right? Mm-hmm. Huge government, no checks and balances, big pocketbooks, sending things overseas or within this country, which we didn't do a whole lot of when you start seeing what people in Western North Carolina and California got, and Hawaii for that matter, versus small government, right? Of allowing the people to make decisions for themselves, even back to the state level. Mm-hmm. They were fighting about this in the 1780s, you know, They're talking about the 70s. Now, what happened there, I think we can go into history books and all that stuff. Here comes the Civil War, here comes Lincoln in, and how slavery was a big part of that as well. But I think at the end of the day, when you look at it from a perspective of why are all these Democrats losing their godforsaken minds, it is they want big government. They want the government to tell us what to do. They want to take our money out of our checks and send it to anywhere they want and make us feel good at the end of the day because we'll run commercials on it, period.
Talk about a crazy liberal, Democratic Wisconsin Governor Anthony Stephen Evers. Okay, and this is for the ladies out there, okay? He's proposing changing the term mother to inseminated person. Yeah. This is what I'm talking about. This is how far gone the left is going. And you want to know, talking like, and the reason that some of the liberals that are supporting this is because they're manipulating what Christ defined the wife or the spouse to be, this Proverbs 31 type woman, to now where I'm the independent boss, babe. I don't have to take any responsibility for sleeping around with Tom, Dick, and Harry. I can do whatever I want. And so people get on board with this. Inseminated person sounds like the perfect name that I want to give to this God-given right that Jesus Christ, mother, the word mother. Like, who in their right mind thinks of getting rid of something like that?
Well, it doesn't take too long to figure out that one party in this government that we have right now wants nothing to do with God at all. Right?
Or the nuclear family.
People just flat out don't want it.
Yeah.
I mean, look at what Harris, that administration ran on. It was the abortion piece was so big for them and women's rights and all this other jazz. But we didn't have an opportunity. We didn't want to go back and turn the page over to what really was said in the Bible, biblical sense, right? The city of Sodom and Gomorrah, right? I mean, it goes back to early days in the Bible. And I don't think anyone wants to bring God up anywhere.
Too bad.
In vernacular.
You know what I mean? Tough, bro. But that's just the point, right? you have these liberal governors like Maine and all the Northeast, and this guy, Anthony. You want to know why Anthony Evers is a turd? Because he's vetoing tax cuts for Wisconsinites, so the middle class get ripped every tax season. He weakened their election integrity big time. No one was monitoring anything. The handling of COVID-19 when all that was going down, these unconstitutional lockdowns, he like ruined his state. He's pushing the liberal agendas, the CRT, gender ideology, continues to do that, and he's super soft on crime policies. So like pardoning criminals, he pardoned over 1,000 criminals with violent records in Wisconsin. I grew up there near Green Bay. I hope they're not having too bad a time, but these are the types of people that we're talking about.
Yeah, it's just incredible to me. And then you turn around and you look at people say, what has Trump done? He's playing a lot of golf, and we see the comments, right? Hey,
Yeah.
It's not really working. We talk about the Marine outside the door. I'm going to throw a stat out to you. That's pretty impressive right now. Okay. If I told you Donald Trump was a Democrat and he's running with on a Democratic ticket, and Trump was going to bring in within 30 days, $6 trillion of investments from overseas and stateside, you would throw a parade for him. You'd have a statue already built for him. And we'd have a holiday name for him. I'm going to read some stats for you. You ready?
Yeah.
Within 30 days, he got $14.1 billion from Nippon Steel, Japanese. He got $20 billion from a big-time multi-billionaire United Arab Emirates named Hussaini Sanjari, I believe his name is. I may be fumbling that a little bit. $50 billion from Apple. $500 billion from Apple to bring everything stateside from Mexico.
Yeah.
To start making stuff on our soil. $500 billion for Stargate. If people don't know what Stargate is, Stargate's going to be our foundational principles for AI and AI technology.
Yeah.
A lot of people involved in that with Stargate. And then here we go. Just a flat $600 billion from Saudi Arabia because they said, look, we want your oil. $1.6 trillion in 30 days. If he was a Democrat, Jake, what would we say about him? There'd be a damn national holiday.
Yeah, but because he's Trump, he's orange man bad. It's this 500 billion thing coming from Apple is pretty cool because it's going to be producing, over 20,000 American jobs. So everyone's freaking out about getting rid of these illegal immigrants who do not be here. They are here illegally. They are criminals, but now we're making jobs for Americans.
Sure.
We got
paying jobs, Jake.
Yeah. Yeah, and who was the other one? The other one you just mentioned after
Stargate?
Stargate.
Yeah.
Man, Stargate's really cool because which is going to make thousands of jobs for Americans because we're trying to advance AI to where Trump's talking about making America basically the foundation, the home base for AI technology, where it's going to basically birth into what it should become, which is going to take a lot of manpower. And I guess until AI takes over, right?
If you look, until we're walking around as robots are answering doors for us. But if you look back in the history of the United States, as far as the founders of technology in general, black and white TVs were big. GE was a big player in that market. The Japanese have done quite a bit too, but you look at our technology, modern tech now, look what Apple's brought to the table. It was born and bred. Here comes Google out with their platforms. Now you have a company called like Stargate coming in using AI principles to build this foundation for the country, where there's some AI principles still, and people are talking about still with air traffic control, right? At what point are we going to stop? And let me just, I'm going to completely go off subject here. And I want to talk about an article I read yesterday.
Yeah.
Our infrastructure within air traffic control has been run through Verizon. I don't know if you read all this or not, but it's been run through Verizon, and it is antiquated technology. They compared that technology to dial-up phone services, right?
Okay.
Dial-up using landlines.
Yeah.
It has never been updated, much like our federal database has with using floppy disks still. Okay.
Yeah.
Now think about where we are now with wireless technology and cloud technology and all that. Elon Musk came in and gave away his technology to the federal government for our air traffic control. So you don't need to depend on landline, ground line, dial-up phones. And people said Elon Musk is just doing that to make $1 off the American people. No one wants to sit there and say, hey, in about 5 years, we're going to perfect this technology right now. And we're going to eliminate, at the end of the day, we're going to eliminate accidents, delays, planes not getting out, all of that. We're going to delay all that because Elon Musk is trying to help out the government one way or the other. He's another one. Think about that. If Elon Musk was a Democrat right now, we'd have a holiday named after Elon Musk. We would. We would. So that's just very interesting to me that Verizon, which is our biggest player in the nation, Verizon, AT&T, right? T-Mobile. But Verizon is that antiquated right now. We haven't upgraded our systems in 35 to 40 years.
Yeah, I had heard some interesting things. Actually, a buddy of mine back when I was on the Netflix TV show, him and I had a conversation because he's very tied into the people that are at Verizon. And he was telling them how a really interesting individual had reached out to him and told him that Verizon, exactly what you talked about, because they have such an antiquated system, if they were to ever reboot their system and advance it, it would actually, there was discussion about them shutting down the Verizon network and in order to make it new. And he said it's not possible because they're using such an old system. They haven't been updating it the way other carriers have been, to where if Verizon would shut down, it would blow out all the Verizon networks across the US. And it would take, he literally said, this guy was a senior executive at Verizon and was saying it would take 20 years to get Verizon to where it should be today because they're using such an old system, which is mind blowing, dude.
Yeah. Think about trying to pull wireless up on a Tandy computer from 1989 from Radio Shack. That's exactly what we're trying to do now as a society.
Big old phones, like
a huge phone that you have no idea how it works. A Tandy computer sitting there, you have a floppy disk drive, and we're trying to pull wireless through that. The technology's not there, and the principles of the technology is not there. I mean, look at the first commercial that was run in the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
T-Mobile's partner with Elon Musk.
Yeah,
the names, the satellites.
Yes. Yeah.
You sign up for it, you have free access to his satellites. You'd be in the middle of the ocean right now, and I could still text message and call you from that. Now think about that for a second. That's technology that we have never seen.
Why don't you think about this? How about them Epstein files? So yesterday, they just came out. Today's the 28th, guys. We try to film a show every Friday. They came out February 20th. I'm going to be pretty candid about this one. Kind of a bust, man. You got guys like DC Drano and all these big media influencers talking about this is going to be great. And I was pretty excited, man. Now, I will say, it came out, everything's blacked out. And I'm like, dude, I'm pretty sure I saw this list like 2 years ago because they blacked out all these names. I know there's going to be a lot more coming out on this. And I'm sure the Trump administration is going to be like, dude, this is a pile of garbage. I just hope it wasn't this big hype. Like, you're going to get all these names and they're all blacklisted because the FBI never really wanted to release them. And that's the product we're getting. But I know there's a ton more coming. They're like, this is just tip of the iceberg. But I'm like, dude, bro, don't let me down. Like, I want to see Tom Hanks's name on the Epstein file. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I want to see who's freaking rocking there. Like, what has Bill Gates been doing at Epstein Island? And then, I don't want to get too big into it, but they're saying people from the Trump administration are on there too. And I'm not trying to create conspiracy, bro. I'm not trying to make anything it's not. Whether Trump was there or not, I don't know. But I want to know, like, I want to know.
Well, yeah, but think about it this way, too, though. Was it just Epstein living on this island, cooking the dinners and cleaning beds? There was a lot of people, staff that were down there. Everybody has been extremely quiet, right? Go back to Obama's cook, personal chef. What happened to him?
Yeah.
That kind of went away. But when you look at the Epstein thing, here's what I would say. I think Pam Bondi has a job to do for the American people right now. I do. She's only been in office for 30 days, less than 30 days. I think she needs to call Kash Patel and say, we are flying to New York City, the Southern District Field Office of the FBI. And we're going to raid that office. And we're going to tear everything out of that office until we have all the files that we need. You are the director of the FBI. You mean to tell me that you have certain rules for certain field offices in the United States? That's crazy to me. Because the one thing they did do, you look back, they finally got the field office of Southwest in Dallas, Texas with the Kennedy stuff.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, why does the FBI keep on creeping around with every big quote unquote conspiracy theory we have But why is the FBI's name always attached to it? Makes no sense.
They're snakes, man. And I think you made a good point. I think it's really good. I think it's amazing. The fact that we got Cash Patel and Dan Bongino in there, because they're going to work now together. Because people are like, well, I want to see more. I'm like, well, dude, Cash Patel just got in there. Believe me, he's kicking stones. I can't wait to see what they come up with. And based off of what you just said about Pam Bondi, well, there was a last minute discovery. This just came out today that the FBI has been hiding thousands of documents relating to the Epstein files. And so there's going to be so much more coming out about this. If anything, if I'm thinking from a Trump perspective, like from that party, they're like, we talked about releasing it. We got to release something. And, you know, like we are going to build the hype. The American public might be disappointed at first, but, you know, this is just the tip of the iceberg. The rest of it's going to be coming. So I'm really not going to dwell on this topic too much. It's just like, it was kind of a bust. But I'm not sitting there being like, oh my gosh, the end of the world's here, because I know a lot more is coming out.
Yeah, I think there are two things. I think what Pam Bondi was given was 200 pages. Yeah. And she knew there was over 4,000, something like that. And on those 200 pages were flight logs. Flight logs don't necessarily mean what you were doing down there. I have no idea on the flight logs with Epstein. The other piece I think we should talk about too is the old thing called the code. We talked about the code a couple weeks ago. How ready is mainstream America, good nuclear families, how ready are you to see, to hear, and to talk about the disturbing nature of some of this stuff?
Oh, I'm ready.
I know you are, and I am too, but, you know, you look at it from a perspective of the guy who was, you know, in Toy Story, you know, and we're mentioning some actors and all that sort of thing.
I don't even care.
Innocent till proven guilty, but man, there's a lot of people. So I saw something yesterday, not to rant on about this. There is an organization out there that is tracking private aircraft from Southern California, Santa Barbara, that area in Southern California, New York City, and Miami. They're tracking private aircraft and where they're going in the next 48 hours. And they saw quite a bit of activity yesterday. There's a reason Ellen DeGeneres left. Let's be honest. Okay? There's a reason Tom Hanks is now Jewish and living in Israel. Right? There's a reason people are going to get out of Dodge. And it's for that simple reason. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it's these trends. We keep talking about trends. It's like the Doge findings. We find all this missing money. The liberals get pissed off. People that get pissed off, you got something to hide. Why does Biden have to give freaking all of these, what did he do right before he left, to his family? These pardons. You give pardons to people, you're probably guilty. You know what? These we talk about all these people moving and leaving. When Hollywood gets quiet, that should tell you something, guys. If it looks like a turd and smells like a turd, it's a turd. You have to call me conspiracy theorist when every single thing they've talked about has come true. That's it.
Completely agree.
So the Eagles are a bunch of turds too. The NFL Eagles deny President Trump visit because they are super liberal and their real colors showed. And I was kind of rooting for the Eagles, man. I was kind of bummed out about that. Not that I'm sure like Trump's like, I don't really care. Like he wants to go out and see the guys and thank the guys. But what do you think about that? Like, why do sports teams and corporations feel the need to publicly dunk on conservatives? You know?
Well, all you need to do, Jake, is figure this out. Look at the map from the evening of the elections. Yeah. Look at the map of Eastern Pennsylvania. Look at that map and how it turned red. Look what the Eagles said. We are not going to take the invitation to the White House. And look what happened 3 days later.
Yeah.
What happened 3 days later? Oh, we're going to go. We're going to go. So now they're going to the White House. At the end of the day, I would have said, that's cool. You're not coming to the White House. That is strictly going to be reserved for our U.S. men's hockey team who just got finished playing some of the best hockey I've ever seen and represent the United States in a crowd.
What a game.
Let's be honest. So all you need to do is follow the money. We talk about it all the time. Follow the money trail. The people in Eastern Pennsylvania are like, look, probably not a good idea. Probably want to go because you could be America's team if you wouldn't open up your mouth and got politics involved with the NFL. Period.
Yeah, I know, man.
Period.
Eagles, whatever, man. I mean, I'm not sweating. I just thought that was it's never new to me. This is a cool one. This is really cool. James O'Keefe. You guys follow O'Keefe, OMG News. Like this guy is an exposing journalist who's exposing all kinds of crazy stuff. He came up and ended up talking about this whistleblower named Monica Cruz, who's blowing the whistle on this juvenile. We talk about the illegal immigrants coming into the country. Well, Monica Cruz blows the whistle on this juvenile smuggling network. She reveals that these teenage cartels have been recruiting ages 4 to 17 have been apprehended 20 times by the Border Patrol, CBP, and they've been released back into the cartel without consequences. This is under the Biden administration. No one's been prosecuted. No one's been held accountable. And Monica Cruz was undercover talking about this, exposing these juvenile networks. It's so interesting. I got to read this. This is really cool. Border Patrol agent Monica Cruz, stationed in Welton, Arizona sector, is blowing the whistle on a deeply flawed system that allows juvenile smugglers, known as, they're called the foot guides, quote unquote, foot guides, to continuously transport groups of illegal migrants across the border without facing prosecution. Now, check this out. These smugglers are teenagers ranging from 14 to 17, Cruz says, Monica Cruz. Due to a loophole in American law, when these teenagers get caught, they're released back into Mexico, only to repeat the same smuggling route that they had with zero fear of legitimate consequences. So one such smuggler, they called him Timmy, has been apprehended and released. This guy, no joke, 20 times, this kid. And this means he's been released 20 times, but this is 20 times that he smuggled people into the country. So you want to talk about the illegal immigration problem, and James O'Keefe is coming out with this story, and it's huge because it's exposing how bad the illegal immigration has been into the country under the Biden administration.
What's incredible to me is we haven't even hit the tip of the iceberg.
I know.
This smuggling stuff. They're saying now, you read back on the last 2 weeks on Haiti. After the earthquake in Haiti, all that money went through the Clinton Foundation, went down there. They only got 1.4% of that money. It was $200 million to the folks in Haiti. I had family who went down there through their church and helped try to rebuild down in Haiti. It was a mess down there in Haiti. And all the kids that are missing, 25,000 kids that are missing in Haiti. Where are they at?
Oh, man, I know.
Where are those kids at? Where are the kids in these poor Mexican towns? Where are they at? But I think one of the bright spots there, Jake, even though we haven't hit the tip of the iceberg, is this. I read this morning very, very early in a cover of darkness this morning. The Trump administration, with the help of the Mexican government, went down and brought into extradition into the United States 121 cartel leaders. Man. And they're starting to arrest these leaders because now they're looked at as terrorists. They're going to stand trial in the United States from a cartel standpoint. So now we have two things going on. We have the fentanyl and the drugs crossing our border. And then we have the illegal immigration and smuggling of people into our country. Now, don't get me wrong. They are hand in hand. There's no doubt about it. They are hand in hand. These kids are coming into our country. I'm sure their pockets, book bags, everything else is full of who knows what. Yeah. So you have a big, big, big issue right now. But if you cut the head of the snake off, does it get better? I'm thinking it does. So now you're just banging down doors in Mexico saying you're coming with us, with dogs with gas masks on and robots saying you get on this plane, you're coming back. It's a huge win for us.
Send me out there, man. I'm ready. Let's go.
Look like it. I love it.
I know, it gets me amped up. How about Dan Crenshaw, man? What's been going on with old Dan and Tucker fallout?
All week? You could say about that guy is I thought he was the biggest liberal Democratic politician we had. And people, you need to realize and you need to recognize he's a Republican.
I feel sick saying that dude's a Republican. He's the perfect
example, Jake. Right.
Right. I know, but he's the perfect example of a politician who started as a conservative hero and turned out to be a total rhino. This dude, if you guys, Dan Crenshaw, Crenshaw, basically has supported every single movement that the liberals, every bill that's been pushed across. He's a liberal, but he's like considered a Republican. I don't know how. He's the most left-wing Republican on the planet. He went on whatever show that was, and we're talking about the incident, guys, just this week where Dan Crenshaw was interviewed, and post-interview, he took off his microphone, and this guy, the reporter or whoever it was, the interviewer was like, hey, what do you think about Tucker Carlson? And he goes, if I ever see that guy, I'm going to effing kill him. He's talking about killing people. So now we're just blatantly talking about unaliving people because that's what you do. You got to understand, Dan Crenshaw, this guy's a former Navy SEAL, man. He was in Bud's class 264. All right. So, but what a disgrace to the community. Like, if I was a SEAL, I'd be like, dude, Dan's dude, he lost his eye in line of duty, man. So it's like, but what a turd. Like, it's hard for me to wrap my head around knowing another brother that has served in the military. And now this is this is what he's become. I mean, he's been a House representative since 2018, and he's voted for Ukraine and virtually every liberal policy Biden ever put into place. And on the Tucker Carlson podcast, Dan Crenshaw, I'm going to repeat what he said. That's what I said before. Crenshaw says, you're an effing lying POS because I'm not even on the yes list for the whip team. Bro, yeah, you are. Yeah, you never have been, he says. But hey, whatever gets you pathetic bottom feeders, your clickbait, you effing incels. And then Tucker, if you watch his response, it's hilarious. I mean, Tucker's like, I'll give you my address, bro. But he goes, Dan Crenshaw is not prepared to lead anything. He's out of control. And I think he's a real volatile person, pretty sinister person. He's like, here's my address. You want to come visit me, bro? Let's go. And it's like, I mean, he has no fear because like all Crenshaw is nothing but a snake, dude. But I thought that was funny because I'm like, is that what we're at today? And we're now making death threats against people. I mean, just a big influencer on social media now. It's his own platform.
That's acceptable in society.
Yeah.
It's acceptable now. You just make threats. It doesn't matter anymore. But here's what I'd like to do with Dan Crenshaw. I want to follow him, and in 3 to 4 years, I want to follow the money trail. And when I want to see what he came in and what his average salary was, and I want to see what his net worth is after 5 years because someone's in his pocket. Let's just be honest.
I hope they find that money. I hope it's guys like him. When Doge comes across a random line item, they're like, why did you say give him like $20 million for some quote unquote philanthropist company group that he was giving money to? And I'm like, finally, dude, like that's what I'm talking about, man. But now I guess death threats are okay, but you can get on TikTok and you can't say certain words because this is the type of landscape that America's in. Tulsi Gabbard firing employees over having inappropriate sex chat room conversations. Like over 100 investigative officers will be getting fired after engaging in sexually explicit messages in NSA government chat rooms. Like who in there, dude? You work for the National Intelligence, group, organization, department. Like what? Like, dude, like we have Teams, Microsoft Teams on your computer. Like, who in the right mind in the intelligence community goes on there and starts saying, oh, yeah, like, or whatever they're saying? Like, what are you doing, man?
Because it goes back to there's no checks and balances, right? Who's going to manage you? Who's going to hold you accountable? Like, at the end of the day, in life, if no one holds you accountable, starting with your mom and dad growing up and throughout life, and at some point you hold yourself accountable, if no one's going to do it and you're conditioned for no accountability in your life, you think you can get away with murder. Dan Crenshaw is a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
Hey, I could just go out there and say, I'm going to murder Tucker Carlson. Hey, I'm going to say what I want to say because I can get away with it. And there's no repercussions, man. I'm telling you right now, if you're not held accountable throughout the course of your life and you have no self-will about yourself, you will fail miserably unless you work for the federal government.
I agree. And that's where we're at today. It's just like that within days. She's like, well, we're going to be firing 100 individuals and it doesn't matter because you guys are all involved. I'm talking, dude, hundreds of people having explicit conversations in these chat rooms. Like, dude, we keep saying it. The barrel's just been loaded, bro. The 12 gauge buckshot has just been put in the gun. Like it's about to go off. And I don't think people are really ready for it. We sit there and talk about Trump's taking over 1,000 questions in only 1 month. Well, why is it that Trump can constantly face brutal gotcha style questions, yet Biden gets asked about ice cream and sunglasses?
That's correct.
That's the difference. Guys, that's the landscape that we're in America today.
Let's go back to the accountability piece with Biden. It wasn't meant for him to be held accountable because he was a puppet, right? So we know that you're going to go out there and you're going to mumble a little bit. I feel sorry for him. At the end of the day, he has a soul, right? And at the end of the day, man, he's going to answer to a lot of people. He's going to answer to the ultimate person when he gets up there. But at the end of the day, he had no accountability either. So
I know. I look at it from a perspective of true checks and balances. Who's keeping you on your toes? Yeah. Well, that's just another week of the Jake and Mitch show. That's just another week of what's been going on. We hope you guys have enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah. Hey, Jake, let me mention one thing real quick here. The whole gold card thing real quick.
Yes.
We'll talk about the
yes.
$5
Finish
million
with that.
gold
Yeah.
card.
Yeah.
I think this is very interesting because this is gaining some traction here. Trump is coming out with a $5 million purchasable gold card to expedite the process to come in this country for $5 million, meaning you still have to go through the same laws and regs and everything you have to go through to get your green card. You kind of go to the front of the line. A brilliant move on his part, because you're going to buy in, you're going to bring money, jobs, creation of jobs, technology, people from all over this world who've never had the opportunity to come in here and to bring their technology with them. I think it's a big thing. I'm going to talk about it next week as well. But here's the number I want you to think about. If you sell 10 million gold cards, 10 million at $5 million a piece, you've balanced our budget at 50 trillion.
Yeah.
And someone wants to argue that.
And that's what I'm going to say is, like, to play devil's advocate is like, what is the libbies going to say? They're going to be like, 5 million to come in. No one could ever pay that. Like, that's not, and this is where they support the illegal, them crossing illegally. Well, we don't call them illegal. We call them whatever they call them now. But yeah, I want to hear more about that next week, guys. And we want to get into it, guys. But that's all the time we have for the Jake and Mitch show. Guys, awesome being here with you. Plenty of crazy stuff happening next week. Buckle up. It's going to be nuts.
Jake and Mitts.